Hello and welcome to Daleks Aren't Robots. I, as always, am Josh. I am here with my friends. We've got Kari.
Hello.
We've got Zach.
Gas Zombie here.
Gas Zombie. And we have Justin.
Hello.
Okay. As always, Zach and I are Whovians. Kari and Justin are relatively familiar with Doctor Who now, and we're showing them all of Doctor Who because we secretly want to torture them. That is the goal here.
It's not that bad.
Oh, one thing I want to say before we got started, because I got a ton of responses about this. In Dalek Invasion of Earth, we accused the creative team of using pie plates for the Dalek saucers. I have been informed that they were actually using hubcaps.
Hubcaps. Oh, that's even better. That's so cute. Oh, I love it.
Thank you very much. You can stop messaging me now.
But they look like pie plates. Oh, that's wonderful,
They
though.
do.
What else is the internet for if not for that?
That is
Exactly.
true. That is true. Now we've jumped back to the modern era, and we are covering the Unquiet Dead, our first historical in New Who, and our first episode not written by Russel T. Davies. Justin, you want to sum up?
They're in Victorian London and there are ghosts, but they're not ghosts because they're aliens.
Yeah, that's about right.
And it's basically filled with a lot of kind of like Victorian nonsense. Like there's a seance and there's a lot of pseudo-spiritualism.
Yeah, there is a lot of that.
But it turns out to be an invading army. Also, Charles Dickens is there, and then it ends.
Yeah.
Wait, you forgot about the woman immolating herself to save the doctor.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's very important.
Justin, you weren't there for our last New Who episode, but that also happened in End of the World when we...
Second episode in a row.
Also, it's Cardiff, not London.
New Who has one of its major themes, I guess.
I guess
Yeah.
so. Classic Who, the doctor's got a shovel. In New Who, the doctor can convince women to self-immolate.
Thanks,
Yep.
I hate it.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Well, I think you left out some details.
We did leave out some details, and there were a couple of details that were maybe a bit off base, but that's generally what happens.
Yes, it was.
Let's look at the man that is apparently worth self-immolating for.
The doctor is kind of a jerk in this episode.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't mind that, but the show doesn't seem to know that he's a jerk again. Like, they seem to have forgotten that. He wants to give people's corpses to the Gelth without the dead people's consent at all. And he's kind of mean to Rose about it, too. Like, he just assumes that that's totally fine because they're not using their bodies anymore. And it's like, actually, this is kind of a moral question that bears some discussion. I'm not even saying that he's wrong. I just don't like the way that it's very dismissive.
Yeah. One thing that's not played up as much in the episode, and it should be, is I really think that by the Gelth mentioning the Time War, they're definitely playing on his PTSD, and that explains a lot of his actions after that. They claimed that their bodies and planet was destroyed by the Time War.
Yeah, and I made jokes, of course, that the doctor was the one that killed them, and maybe he kind of did. So I turned out to be maybe sort of quasi-right on that one again.
Something I will say, Zach and I were having a discussion about this in the lead up to the episode, and Zach pointed out to me that when the Gelth are giving their backstory, they are doing so through the vessel of a woman who we have established can read minds. She reads Rose's mind earlier in the thing. So maybe the Gelth are using that, seeing the Time War, and are trying to play on his sensibilities a little bit.
Oh, that could very well be.
This is actually potentially positive in a future book and audio.
Yeah, but that doesn't count.
No, but...
Okay, so we skipped a couple things in the summary. Like, what happens is there's an undertaker and his maid. The dead are coming back to life, apparently, but what Justin said is correct. They're not actually ghosts. They're aliens, and the aliens trick the undertaker's maid into helping them become present in the world more.
Yeah.
And then they're going to take over the world. They start possessing a lot of the corpses, and then the maid immolates herself to stop them. So happy ending, kind of, unless you're the dead woman who just blew up her house.
They also try to soften that by saying, oh, she's been dead since she walked into the archway.
Yeah, but she still wouldn't have been dead if the doctor hadn't interfered. Hello? I don't know. And he's just a jerk about it because the aliens who are pretending to be ghosts want to use human corpses so that they can exist again and live in this world. And the doctor at first wants to let them do that. And Rose protests saying, hey, they didn't agree to let their bodies be used that way. And the doctor is very dismissive of it. And the show acts like the doctor is obviously correct.
Well, but then he turns out to be wrong.
He does turn out to be wrong, but he doesn't apologize for that.
No, he doesn't. I feel like the biggest issue isn't so much what happens in the episode, but how it resolves itself, where the doctor gets to just walk away and we get a nice little happy moment with him and Rose pondering about Charles Dickens, rather than anyone pointing out, hey, you were wrong. Your wrongness not only fucked up a whole bunch of people's lives, but almost ended the world. Maybe you should say something about that.
Yeah. It's, again, the show pumping up the doctor and sucking away from everything else.
I don't quite see it as pumping up the doctor in this particular case because, again, the story itself points out that the doctor is wrong.
And
but there's no consequences.
No.
To him, there certainly are for all the huge number of dead people laying around. Thanks, guys.
There's still very much an air of, well, you're still lucky to have him.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true.
The story doesn't really get that.
And there's some issues with it, structurally, too. Throughout this episode, I noticed, especially on the second watch through, that, occasionally the doctor will come in and just say something authoritatively, like he knows something. And it's not something that they ever explain how in the heck he knows any of this.
Yeah, I feel like that's a big problem in New Who, primarily because of the time constraint.
Yeah, they want to deal with the time constraints, but it's okay, so how do you know that?
Also, this story went through a lot of rewrites.
That makes a lot of sense considering.
Yeah.
One thing that I did think was interesting, though, is because of the way that Eccleston portrays the doctor, he does kind of act like he has ADHD or something. He's very kinetic, he's always moving, and he's
very all over the place.
He has no patience for anything, and he also jumps around in his speech a lot.
He definitely, he'll be in the middle of a speech to everybody, and then he'll go off on a tangent that was clearly just a thing that popped into his head.
So I'm wondering if this is our first non-neurotypical doctor.
If he is, I don't think I would call him the first.
Ah, okay.
Particularly when we keep an eye out for the second and fourth doctors.
Ah, okay. Well, we'll have to watch for that when we get there. I like that element, and I think Eccleston does it really well. He is pulling through here for me on personal charisma alone, because the writing does not make me like this character at all.
A lot of this episode and this era in particular gets by just on Eccleston's force of personality being very compelling.
Yep.
I did actually find a quote from Eccleston saying that there was only really one writer this season that he felt that he actually understood when they wrote the Doctor, and it wasn't Davies or Gaddis.
Huh.
May I take a guess?
It was Moffat.
Yeah.
That was the only time that he felt like the writer actually got the view of the Doctor was from the writer. He never got what Davies was going for.
But I feel like that's a common complaint of New Who that I've heard. All of the various doctors consistently is that Doctor Who fans will say, I really like the actor, just the writing lets them down. I've heard that on about every single New Who doctor.
I mean, a big part of it is also Doctor Who fans all have their own preference for different writers and writing styles.
Yeah.
So, Davies fans hate the Moffat era, Moffat fans hate the Chibnall era, Chibnall fans hate, I assume, everything before. You're never going to get consensus on when the writing was good.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll cover the Moffat episode, of course, when we come to it, but I will say I feel like this season does have the best piece of writing Moffat ever did for the show.
That's all I had on the Doctor.
Yeah, and it seems pretty much in line with how we felt about this Doctor up to this point. Let's talk a bit about Rose, because I do feel like this episode I wouldn't say makes better use of Rose than the past episodes, because I don't think it does, but it portrays a version of Rose that I like a bit better.
I liked Rose in this one. She stands up to the doctor about as much as she can. She does not let him bully her. She is protective of Gwyneth, the Undertaker's maid, and her misgivings about Gwyneth helping the Gelth. She's right.
Yep.
We also learned that her father is dead, which is interesting. We didn't know that before. I even like the way that she looked in this one. Her hair was super period appropriate. I really liked it. The dress isn't quite right, but that might be more in the way that it's worn than the actual garment itself.
I was kind of surprised. I watched this episode with you, and we talked about, she shows a bit of shoulder in this, and I thought like, ooh, that was probably pretty scandalous at the time. And you said, no, that would have been about right.
It'd be a little higher up, but maybe by like an inch.
So the neckline and everything, that's okay. But if you show ankle, you're a harlot.
Oh, yeah. Very important.
The rules of this have never made sense.
No, they don't. They're completely illogical, just like they are now.
Rose, in my opinion, as a character, is at her best when she thinks of the human element. I feel like that's a job that most companions are supposed to bring to the show, because the Doctor is never really going to think of the human element because he's not human.
He's half human on his mother's side.
He was never raised human.
Right.
He was raised as a Time Lord.
Right.
Just on the Rose thing, we have another repeated thing that will repeat again, where she gets along with a working class woman of the time period
who then dies.
And she also, from that same episode again, she gets locked in a room and menaced by zombies this time, and the Doctor saves her by grabbing her hand and yanking her 5 feet to the left, just like in the first episode.
At the very least, they didn't do it for half the episode
this
time.
Thank goodness. But it does seem to be a theme.
It's a nice tense scene in this case, whereas in End of Time, I feel like the dated effects and how long it's stretched out over the course of the episode, it gets more tiring than tense in End of Time, whereas here it's kept nice and short.
But that happened in the first episode too, so we're 3 for 3 on that.
Yeah, it did.
And again, that was like he saved her in that one by literally grabbing her hand and yanking her like 5 feet away. And it's like she could have just moved 5 feet on her own.
The only real problem I have with Rose is that as a plot function, she doesn't have much to do in the story.
She did in this one.
You think so?
Yeah, well, she argued with the Doctor. I thought that was pretty important, and she did turn out to be correct.
She presented that opposing viewpoint.
Yeah, it is kind of important, I think.
It was an opposing viewpoint for somebody we knew and ostensibly liked.
Right.
Basically.
Yeah. Although Gwyneth herself ends up choosing to go with the Doctor. So there's...
Yeah, unfortunately. The TARDIS still sounds hungry, and they refer to it as a shed in this episode, not a shed.
It's about the size of some British sheds.
Yeah.
On the outside. And this will have been before
police boxes.
Public
I
call
know,
boxes.
But we have to talk about Dickens, you guys. He's a main character in this. I don't know why.
Doesn't do anything.
It's a ghost story. It's December 24th, but Christmas does not come into the story at any point. Dickens is a skeptic. I don't know how close that is to reality.
But the story would not really be any different if you took him out.
No, it wouldn't. And it sure wouldn't be any different if it wasn't Christmas.
Yeah.
The one thing I guess he contributed is an idea anyone could have, even Rose, which is flooding the basement with gas.
Yep. In the story, it serves no purpose being Charles Dickens other than, hey, it's Doctor Who time travel. Let's get a famous Victorian person.
New Who really liked to do that. Classic Who didn't do that quite as much.
Like the Doctor would name drop famous people.
Yeah, but they didn't show up in the story that much. Like we had Marco Polo.
Yeah.
Where we do meet Marco Polo, but that was kind of a rarity.
And it didn't really work that well either.
No.
Anyway, one thing, Dickens was a founder of something called the Ghost Club, one of the first paranormal investigative social clubs in England.
But were they pro or anti? Were they debunkers?
Dickens was more of he didn't discount the possibility of real ghosts, but he thought that the vast majority were a disordered condition of the nerves or senses. He was willing to believe, but he was also looking to disprove most of it.
So he was agnostic on ghosts, and he did go around and defraud psychics.
Debunk, not defraud.
Yeah.
Debunk. He debunked
also,
psychics.
One of the other members along later was Peter Cushing of the same club. So
Oh, that's cool.
So the Doctor did in fact join this club.
That's neat.
Was Christopher Lee part of it too?
not that I found, no.
Because I really just like the idea of Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee in real life going
Yes.
around and fighting ghosts.
That would be amazing. I would
Oh,
watch the heck out of that
yes.
movie. I tell you that right now. In fact, make that a show. I would watch that every week.
So Charles Dickens apparently did go around debunking psychics and seeking ghosts.
Why did they choose him for this episode, Zach?
Well, originally Mark Gatiss didn't want to because he said that, the Doctor never meets historical people, and Russell T. Davies insisted on shoving Charles Dickens in there and wouldn't back down.
So it was an add-on. Although the Doctor never met historical people. I mean, okay, Marco Polo. All right, sure, dude. Did these people even watch the show?
I guess he
I'm just
means
asking.
like very rarely.
Yeah, I know.
To be fair, Gatiss may have never watched First Doctor episodes. That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, they weren't as easy to come across in the early 2000s.
Fair enough. That's fair.
I will mention that once they did get Dickens, Gatiss insisted on getting Simon Callow to play the part.
You were telling me that he was apparently a member of the Dickens Appreciation Society.
Like
Oh.
he's written books on Dickens. He's played him in a lot of stage shows and stuff. He feels that generally fiction uses Dickens as an all-purpose Victorian literary character, and he actually liked what Gatiss did, making him sad because it was towards the end of his life.
I thought it was a good portrayal of him for the most part.
He just doesn't have much to do.
Yeah.
No, he really doesn't. I wish that they'd incorporated the Christmas stuff and the ghosts a lot better with Dickens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, though, Dickens is the cause for one of my favorite scenes in this episode, which is the Doctor fanboying over him.
That was kind of cute. I did like that. I'm not that much of a Dickens fanatic myself, so I didn't get all of the references, but of course I got most of them. For context on this, my parents had season tickets to the Guthrie Theater in Minneapolis for most of my life, and so I saw productions of A Christmas Carol every year between age 3 and maybe 25 or 30 even. And early on, at least, the Guthrie's version of the story has Dickens as a character in it.
And you've seen more portrayals of Charles Dickens more than everybody.
Yep.
I'm terribly sorry, though. I am sure none of them could live up to my favorite portrayal of Charles Dickens, which is Gonzo
Yeah.
from The Muppet Christmas Carol.
Yeah, he'd probably be better. But I'm just saying, for frame of reference, like, I at least somewhat familiar with Dickens.
Also, I guess while we're on Dickens, do we want to cover What the Shakespeare?
Yeah, what was with that? At one point, Dickens said, "What the Shakespeare?" Was that something that the real life Dickens actually said?
No.
Because it sounded really stupid and out of
It
place,
did.
frankly.
No, it was a play on the expression "what the Dickens," which has
So Charles
nothing to do
Dickens.
with Charles Dickens.
Yeah, no, it
Oh,
doesn't.
that's even worse.
What the Dickens is apparently a reference to the devil.
He should have just said "What the Dickens." It would have been funnier. It
Yeah.
actually made sense
What the
historically.
me?
What the me?
Yeah, that would have been at least something that made sense. That one landed like a lead balloon, but all
Yeah,
right.
I had to explain it.
So now I think we've spent more time on Dickens than the actual episode does. So let's move on to the side characters who actually do play a part in the story. And let's start with the less important one, Mr. Sneed.
He's kind of generic Undertaker guy.
Yeah.
And he's
Yeah.
killed, so I don't particularly care. Yeah, it is not totally clear what his relationship with Gwyneth really is.
No, it isn't.
That whole thing was very odd.
Yeah. Also, the character went through a lot of changes. I will just say originally he was going to be much younger and played by David Tennant.
Oh, it's interesting.
That would have made their relationship different.
Yeah.
Very.
Yes.
Interesting. But he didn't really have much to him.
No.
He mostly exists to be killed.
Zach, in your research, did you find out if the actor came back?
No, that's his only television appearance
Okay.
Wow.
on
Hmm.
Doctor Who.
Oh, okay.
Fair enough.
Did you just do that one thing and that was it?
Yep, that's it. Never acted did.
He said he would never do TV ever, but he got the script and the part was just so perfect.
Well, that's about Sneed. How
Yeah.
about Gwyneth?
Gwyneth has more personality and she's got more to go off of.
Yeah, she's actually more pivotal to the plot than Dickens or Sneed.
She's also the introduction of one of my least favorite Russell T. Davies tropes, random psychic.
Oh, that's going to come up again,
Oh,
is
good.
it?
Yep.
So no religion, but psychics are cool.
Apparently in the Doctor Who universe, like a third of all people are psychics or some
Let me
shit.
guess, most of them are women.
Yes, actually.
That's not a surprise. Women are so much more in touch with their emotions and feelings. Gwyneth is the maid. She lived in the house on the dimensional rift, and that's why she is the key to opening the dimensional rift. She thinks that the Gelth are angels because she's religious, and therefore she's dumb and uneducated. Her mother told her she had the sight because she can hear the Gelth all the time, but she can also read minds for no reason at all.
You've got the shinin.
It's really stupid.
Yeah.
She does have a strong sense of morality, which I
Yeah.
thought was actually cool. And she sacrifices herself first to help the Gelth, and then she immolates herself to save the world. It's not really to save the Doctor, but
Yeah.
wouldn't have had to happen if he hadn't bullied her into doing it.
The other thing I find kind of interesting about this episode, and I'll get into it a bit more when it becomes less subtext and more text, but this is the first indication we have that this particular Doctor has kind of a death wish. Before giving up on Gwyneth, the plan he seemed to have was he would take the lighter and sacrifice himself.
Until he saw she was dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's been dead this whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also really like Gwyneth's little conversation with Rose. It actually very much parallels the scene between Rose and I can't remember her name, but
The plumber.
the alien plumber in the first one, where now the thing that's getting in the way of Rose really connecting with this person who is, from her perspective, on her level, is just the difference in eras, where like Rose kind of wants to talk about boys and Gwyneth is like, repressed
This is-
Victorian morals
yes.
activate.
Yep. Well, we
No.
can't do that. Oh my goodness, that's scandalous.
We're talking about bottoms. Pa, 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 pa.
I thought the actress did a really good job with the part that she was given. There's a point at which she reads Rose's mind, and so she can see all this modern stuff. And of course, she can't really interpret it properly because it's not in her experience set.
It's very Agnes Nutter.
Yeah.
That was well written, I felt too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did feel like that scene at least was well written.
Aside from like serious pacing issues and some problems with Eccleston, I don't think this is an especially bad written episode.
No.
I wouldn't necessarily call it a greatly written episode either. It's serviceable.
The part of it that's not good is the part with Dickens being kind of vaguely shoehorned in, which was
Yeah.
very noticeable.
Yeah.
And even that's not so much bad as it just doesn't have a point.
I think we'll see that the showrunner will actively destroy good stories by shoving in what they want.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, that is kind of the point of a showrunner, frankly.
Yeah.
I do find it really funny, though, that the parts that we're really against in this story seem to come directly from Russell T. Davies. Like, even when we escape Russell T. Davies, we can't escape Russell T. Davies.
There is no escape.
I think the only characters really worth talking about left are the Gelth.
I didn't even have them written down
Yeah,
because they were
they're-
so forgettable.
They're not terribly interesting.
Funny you should say that, because Mark Gatiss thought he'd really hit on something with the Gelth.
Oh, really?
I mean, you could make something out of
Yeah,
them.
they could be interesting. They're just not.
Do they come back?
No, they don't.
Different books, so no.
Zach, could you pull up this quote where he talks about his process with the Gelth?
Happily, as with Terry Nation, the name just sort of rolled off the laptop. I wanted them to appear pathetic and rather sad, but then charmed when the true nature of their plan was revealed. Are there any Pity the Gelth t-shirts? There should be.
Yeah, he thought he'd come up with like the next Daleks.
Why do people keep thinking that they've come up with the next Daleks? I mean, to be totally fair, the Weeping Angels are the next Daleks, but like, apart from that, nothing else has even come close, has it?
Not really.
I mean, the fact that I know what the Weeping Angels are
Yeah.
when I haven't seen any episodes with them on them should tell you that.
And even despite that, the Weeping Angels burned out real quick. Like, I think most Doctor Who fans like the first Angels episode and maybe the second Angels episode. But after that, I think everyone got pretty sick of the Weeping Angels.
I also have
Fair
to
enough.
ask, did you guys at any point get any hint that there was an actual actress portraying the Gelth on screen?
I mean, I assumed so.
They have a humanoid figure
Yeah.
at some point.
They did, and they had her also have to double in so that they could overlay that over every time that the Gelth were speaking as a human.
Yeah.
Right, you could hear a female voice. For some period of that, I thought that was the actress playing Gwyneth's voice,
Hmm.
but I guess it wasn't.
someone else.
Okay, fair enough. I thought that was tying in that they were using her.
Also, we're probably not going to cover her, at least on this podcast, but because fans will send me message after message if I don't mention it, the actress who plays Gwyneth did go on to play the secondary protagonist in Torchwood, the Jack Harkness
Oh,
spinoff.
that's cool. So she
Same.
definitely comes back. That's good. I liked her
yeah.
a lot.
She was also Meryl in Dragon Age 2.
She's not the same character.
No, well, yeah, she can't be the same character. She freaking immolated
Yeah.
herself, remember?
She was dead all along.
So, moving on to the setting, the Doctor says in this one that history can be rewritten in a snap. So, apparently now we can
Yeah, it doesn't
change
matter.
things in the time
No
stream.
rules. It's whatever the story needs.
Or is he lying now, or was first lying, or is just continuity a fuck it, we're done with this? I'm not even...
That one right there.
Okay, all right. I'm fine. And I'm fine with that. Honestly, I think the idea of trying to put anything as canon in Doctor Who is futile and
Yeah.
also kind of hilarious.
We'll get to an episode later down in season 1 that will address this.
Oh, yeah.
It'll be very dumb.
Good, because it should be. Oh, okay. Zach, our resident, what is it, Caledonophile?
Yes.
So this whole episode takes place in Cardiff, which is in Wales, but apparently Cardiff is a terrible place, or it's like a joke place or something, like a place to joke about like New Jersey. Is Cardiff the New Jersey of the United Kingdom? Because it comes up twice in a 40-minute episode where they're like, ew, Cardiff. And as a non-Brit, I don't know why it looked fine to me.
First of all, fuck you.
Hey, it's the New Jersey of Britain, isn't it? I'm just saying, it's the New Jersey of Britain.
Well, one is kind of playing on the fact that no one ever goes back in time to a place like Cardiff. 2, it's because they filmed there. And 3, yeah, Cardiff and Wales in general kind of gets mocked a lot in Britain.
But Wales is beautiful.
Yeah.
And the people there are really cool. Well, so it is like New Jersey. It's unfairly maligned.
Yes, thank you.
Crappy.
Well, it's set in Cardiff. They filmed a couple scenes, but they couldn't film most of it in Cardiff because Cardiff is too advanced to look like Victorian Cardiff. So they had to film in Swansea.
The thing I find really funny, though, is apparently in the original script, it was London. And then they were like, no, we've got to change it to Cardiff because we're doing most of the filming in Cardiff. Then, like, it was too Victorian for them to film in Cardiff, so they had to film somewhere else anyway. Because they were shooting in Cardiff, a lot of stories in this era will actually take place in Cardiff. And pretty much every time they do, there will be Cardiff jokes.
Oh, don't listen to them, Cardiff. I love you.
Londoners are snobby douchebags. Just like New Yorkers.
I like London too, but poor Cardiff. It's okay. You be you, Cardiff. Don't you listen to them.
One thing I will bring up as we're wrapping up is the BBC got a large amount of complaints after this episode aired.
Oh no. Did Susan bring out the scissors again? What was it?
Doctor Who is too scary for children. In fact, the BBC briefly tried to instate a no under 8s policy.
Okay, have you guys ever seen Sleeping Beauty, like the Disney version? I'm just curious because, like, now, my prince, you will face me and all the powers of hell.
Better question. Did they not see 2 episodes ago when the plastic dummy people were shooting up a mall in the middle of London? That wasn't too intense for kids?
And there were bodies, like there were corpses all over the road.
Yeah. Then the BBC got an issue where after issuing the under 8 thing, they were getting complaints that people were like, well, I don't like being told what I can and can't allow my children to watch.
You can just ignore that,
We're going to stop paying our license fees. So they then said, okay, parents can make up their own decision. They rescinded the under 8, but they kept an under 3 warning.
That is somehow the most British sentence I've ever heard, and yet also the most American sentence I have ever heard.
Yeah, it really is. And frankly, I have a 3-year-old nephew, and a 3-year-old would never watch this anyway. Their attention span is about 3 minutes long.
Yeah.
So I did have a couple things from production that I wanted to ask.
Okay.
Did the doctor kill the Gelf?
Potentially, we don't know what their numbers were, and they've really never come back. So if they were all in that basement at that time.
Oh, no. I meant during the Time War.
During the Time War. Oh, we don't know.
Outside of a couple of audios
Fair.
and books, the Gelth are never mentioned again after this.
Well, yeah, but I figured that he'd destroyed the entire time stream or something, and that's how that happened. It's sci-fi, so I don't know what happened in the Time War. So, if he destroyed the time stream and that's how the Gelth got nuked, then that would make sense that he actually kind of did kill the Gelth.
He didn't destroy the time stream. At this point, and I say this because what happens changes a lot. There's going to be a lot of retconning. Basically, what happened at this point is the Doctor destroyed Gallifrey, but in all timelines. So at all points in history, Gallifrey is now destroyed. So he can't just go back to past Gallifrey.
So he did destroy the time stream, just in one very specific place.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and the war itself damaged the time stream.
Yeah.
Right. So he
Somehow.
might have then, but
Yes.
we don't really know.
But we don't
Gotcha.
really know.
And then I had one other question, which is this. How many women have immolated themselves for the Doctor? And is this going to be a trend?
Did we ever get exact numbers on this?
No.
You mean literal immolation or just,
Both. I want to know
metaphorical
first with the literal immolation, but also with the metaphorical
I
immolation.
assume that the former is a smaller number than the latter.
Yes, but I
Yes.
believe there is still a more than 0 number coming up. I can think of at least 2 others that did it in
Literally.
just New Who. One of whom is going to do it for this Doctor.
I mean, I'm the one that thinks that Christopher Eccleston is the best looking Doctor, and I still wouldn't immolate myself for him. Just
It happens
saying.
a bit less in Classic Who.
But it does still happen.
Is this going to be a trend where women are sacrificing themselves for the Doctor? Is that a thing?
I can think of at least 1, maybe 2 more examples.
He's the most important person in the world, Kari.
Some men will sacrifice themselves for the Doctor.
Oh, I'm sure. Is it more women, though?
Yes.
I feel like someone who writes for this show has issues with women.
Yeah.
Yes, which, seeing as a woman kind of helped really start the show and keep it alive, is...
Yeah.
I don't think it's a deliberate thing.
No.
They don't think I have it out for women and I'm going to punish them. I think it's just an unconscious bias.
It's the same reason Rose gets damseled so damn often.
Although that can be a writing choice too, as we
Yeah.
saw with Liz. They didn't like Liz because...
I mean, to a certain extent, the role of the companion is to get captured. It's not the whole role of the companion, but it's usually a part of it. The companion's role is usually to be in danger.
And see, we don't see that very much with Classic Who.
No.
The Doctor is in equal amounts of danger as the companions at any given time.
Yeah.
That is true.
In Classic Who, it seems like a lot of times the companion's role is to basically get separated so that they have more
Right.
characters
Yeah.
to scatter around.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they do get endangered frequently, but the Doctor is almost always in equivalent danger, and they save each other fairly often in Classic Who.
Especially when William Hartnell has time off.
Yeah.
Right.
The problem is New Who has a definite hero worship view of the
Yeah.
Doctor.
Yeah.
Definitely picking up on that.
And I'm not liking that dynamic as much.
New Who definitely views the Doctor as Batman and the companion as Robin.
Yeah.
Except even that's not fair, because at least in modern comics, they're a lot more even.
Depends on the Robin,
It
but
does.
yeah.
Yeah.
In the time period.
Yes.
There was a reason
Yes.
that for a while the joke was that it was Robin the boy hostage.
Whereas by the time he grows up, he's Nightwing, and they are functionally very equal.
Yeah.
It's like that Tiny Toons gag where Robin's painted with a literal bullseye on his chest.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of prefer the Liz third Doctor relationship
Yes.
where it's still not equal because the Doctor is
Yeah.
way more knowledgeable, but she contributes a lot more than screaming or being stuck in a room.
And he doesn't actually treat her like an idiot. He's actually the only one he kind of doesn't treat like an idiot.
Yep.
Even Hartnell Barbara.
Yeah.
There's a definite, like, both of them bring stuff to the table.
Mutual respect.
Yeah.
There's a lot of mutual respect there. And she had to earn that from him because he was a dirtbag to her at first. I keep hoping that that's going to happen here with Rose.
Yeah, I don't feel like the Doctor actually respects Rose.
We'll see.
He likes her.
Yeah,
but he doesn't respect her.
And he likes her having her around, but so far it's very much it feels like he's showing off still.
I feel like that's mostly going to be how this goes.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. It kind of pulls back to his childish nature. He has a much more childish vibe.
But you got to grow.
Right.
There needs to be a moment where he goes,
I'm hoping that he grows.
Yeah.
I keep hoping that.
We'll see. Before we leave production, Zach, you told me about some criticism that this episode got from a specific member of the sci-fi author community.
And others, but yeah, this one guy, Lawrence Miles, who wrote Facts and Paradox, which is a Doctor spinoff, he wrote a scathing critique because of when this came out in 2005, Britain was having a big refugee crisis. Like, it started right around the week that this episode aired, and he criticized the episode for showing, these refugees come and all of a sudden they're evil and want to just take over.
I mean, whether you think that there was a refugee crisis or not has a lot to do with your political opinion.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, I don't think it was intentional, certainly. And I think, frankly, calling it a anti-refugee story is laying a lot at this episode's feet, but I can definitely see where he's coming from.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I think you're right.
Yeah.
One thing, though, that I do want to point out is that Mark Gatiss himself has taken up a number of, I believe you said anti-Tory and anti-UKIP causes.
Anti-far right.
Yeah, if he is far right, he hides it really well. He's probably definitely centrist.
He also
and
was strongly anti-Brexit during that whole...
Right.
All right, I don't remember. Just remind me. Did the Doctor know who the Gelf were once they said the name?
No.
No, he did not.
Okay, I was just trying to remember.
Yeah. No, that's a good point to bring up.
He didn't know that apparently their people were destroyed in the Time War.
Yeah.
No.
Which tells you a lot about the scope of that conflict.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Time War was meant to be sort of like a Crisis on Infinite Earths situation, where it was mostly an excuse to lock away as much of the Doctor Who mythos as they could in order to start fresh, so to speak.
I will say, because we were talking about the timeline things, at one point the Doctor was going to take Rose to the future and show London in 2005 overrun by Gelth zombies, but that didn't work for pacing.
Not needed.
Yeah.
No.
Didn't need it.
He's like, this Rose is why we need to kill another alien species.
Haven't got my genocide on.
And this, Rose, is why sometimes genocide is actually a good thing.
Oh dear, yeah, he did genocide those people, although it technically really wasn't him, but
yeah,
it was more of aiding and abetting genocide, wasn't it?
Yeah, present while it happened.
The man who never would. All right. So I think it's time for the only part of the show that really matters, our ratings section, where we take our complicated, shifting, sometimes contradictory opinions and boil them down to a scale of 1 to 4 Daleks.
I will go first. I had issues with the episode, as we have already discussed, but I did like it overall, and I thought that most of it worked. I think the Dickens parts didn't work, and the weird sacrificial women thing and some of the other stuff didn't work. But most of all, this has been, I think, the best New Who episode I've seen so far. So I'll give it a 2 Daleks.
Okay. I would largely agree, and I think I actually maybe liked it a bit better. I have a real fondness for Eccleston and his Doctor, so I think that carries a lot of weight with me. I was initially going to give it a 3 going into this cast, but over the discussion, I think I'll bring it down to a 2.5.
Solid.
Justin, you want to go next?
I would actually say 2 as well.
2 as well.
Interesting ideas. There's some stuff I like, but there's a lot more that it's not that I didn't like, but I just didn't care about.
That's fair.
It didn't really do much for me.
Zach.
I think with everything we covered, I think that 2 is fairly good. It's an average New Who episode. It has its detriments and it has its good points. And 2.
Yeah, I think average New Who episode is pretty much spot on.
Yeah, I can't wait to see more of the Gelf.
can't wait to
There-
see more women immolate themselves for the Doctor.
I'm sure you'll get both.
That you'll get. So yeah, this has been another Daleks Aren't Robots. If you liked it and you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to like, subscribe, ring the bell. If you're listening to us on Buzzsprout, then just stick around or follow us through any of the various podcasty memes that come through podcasty memes, not memes, although we do have memes. I'll get to that. Or if you're listening to us on Facebook, then be sure to like and maybe give us a share as well. That helps. Check out our website, DalexAren'tRobots.com, where we've got memes, we've got notes, we've got articles, we've got resources. All kinds of cool stuff is up there. And of course, the podcast is also there. So, and yeah, I think that's it. Next time, we're jumping back to the Third Doctor era for the Ambassadors of Death.
Wait, so there's an ambassador of death?
It's Doctor Who. It's the Doctor.
Oh, that's fair. Here I was thinking that they would have like an embassy and like guards and like...
There is a death embassy. I'm pretty sure that's just purgatory.
I think there would be a lot of paperwork involved.
Yeah,
Yeah.
purgatory.
Well, there usually are with embassies.
Actually, I think the episode itself is the Embassy of Death because it's another 7-parter.
Pity us. Pity the podcasters.
But yes, until next time, remember to feed your TARDIS and to pity the Dark Crew. We are deserving of your pity.
And I will just say, as much as the woman immolating herself is awful, it does fulfill the whole she made fire, so she had to die.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, that is a good point.
She made fire, so she was both the leader and she had to die. She brought
That
it
really
full
streamlines
circle.
the process, doesn't it?
It really
It
does.
Oh my God.
Now I
Guys,
understand.
She completed it. She completed it.
I thought you said you were my fan.
Oh, well, if you can't take criticism.